He was America's favorite father, a TV legend, and a man who could make the world cry with just one look. But behind the camera, Michael Landon's real story is more dramatic than any show he ever made. From a javelin-throwing teen with a secret illness to a Hollywood icon hiding heartbreak, scandal, and a diagnosis that shocked millions, this is the unbelievable true story of the man behind Little Joe, Charles Ingalls, and Highway to Heaven. Forgotten letters, forbidden affairs, the final script he never finished, and the truth his widow waited 30 years to reveal. Stay to the end, because what she finally said will change how you see him forever. Born Eugene Maurice Orowitz, the shocking origins of Michael Landon. Before he ever rode across the Ponderosa or walked the highways of heaven, Michael Landon was just Eugene Maurice Orowitz. The name rarely comes up, but holds the key to understanding his transformation. Born on October 31, 1936 in Queens, New York, Landon came into the world during the Great Depression, the son of Peggy O'Neill, a Catholic dancer on Broadway, and Eli Horowitz, a Jewish movie publicist. That dual heritage, Catholic and Jewish, would shape a lifelong identity crisis he rarely discussed publicly. Even as a boy, Eugene felt like an outsider. He was painfully aware of his differences, especially regarding social status. His family eventually relocated to Collingswood, New Jersey, but financial struggles followed them. Things got worse when he began experiencing an extreme case of psychosomatic vomiting every time he faced academic pressure. This condition, which plagued him throughout high school, often left him humiliated and isolated. But perhaps most shocking of all, Eugene didn't dream of becoming an actor. He wanted to be an Olympic javelin thrower. He held a national record in high school and earned a track scholarship to USC. That dream abruptly ended when he suffered a shoulder injury during his freshman year. Just like that, sports were over. But Hollywood wasn't far off. In a twist worthy of a movie, his journey into showbiz began after a friend invited him to a Warner Brothers acting class. His chiseled looks and raw charisma did the rest. The name change to Michael Landon? That came from flipping through a phone book. And just like that, Eugene vanished. Michael Landon was born. Why a high school javelin throw changed Michael Landon's entire life. One perfectly hurled javelin in 1954 did more than win a meet. It redirected the entire course of Michael Landon's future. Back then, he was still known as Eugene Orowitz, an awkward but determined teen attending Collingswood High School in New Jersey. While most of his classmates saw sports as a hobby, Eugene treated track and field like a lifeline. After years of battling crippling anxiety and a mysterious condition that caused him to vomit during tests and social pressure, javelin became his outlet and his way out. That year, in a jaw-dropping moment, Eugene launched a javelin over 193 feet, an astonishing distance that broke national high school records at the time. It wasn't just a victory, it was his golden ticket. The throw earned him a full athletic scholarship to the University of Southern California, specifically to join their elite track and field program. For a kid from a modest, often unstable background, this was nothing short of miraculous. But here's the cruel twist. During his freshman year at USC, Eugene suffered a severe shoulder injury while practicing, just months into the program. That single javelin throw had launched his dreams, and ironically, his pursuit of it ended them too. With his scholarship gone and no safety net, he dropped out of college. It was a crushing blow, and yet without that throw and the injury that followed, there might never have been a Michael Landon. Forced to start over, he stumbled into acting, almost by accident. In a way, that javelin throw didn't just change his life, it created the legend. How Michael Landon got his first role without ever auditioning. It's the kind of Hollywood break that feels too convenient to be real. But it happened. After dropping out of USC due to a shoulder injury that crushed his javelin dreams, Michael Landon, still going by Eugene Orowitz, found himself taking odd jobs around LA to survive. One of those was working at a local gas station in Beverly Hills, where fate, or at least a little timing, stepped in. A fellow employee who had just started taking acting classes at Warner Brothers suggested that Eugene tag along to one of the sessions. No intention, no headshots, not even a stage name, just curiosity. Once inside, Landon's charisma did the rest. A casting executive visiting the class that day noticed the young man with his intense eyes, rugged good looks, and an unmistakable screen presence. He was offered a small part without a formal audition, a rarity even in the freewheeling days of 1950s Hollywood. That first credited role came in 1956's Telephone Time, a now mostly forgotten anthology series, but it set him on the path to stardom. Ironically, he wasn't even Michael Landon yet. The name was chosen soon after from a phone book, a strategy used by many actors trying to rebrand themselves with more Hollywood-sounding names. Landon picked something simple, strong, and clean. And it stuck. That single lucky invitation to an acting class not only changed his career trajectory, but introduced a television icon to the world, without ever walking into a traditional casting call. The 1956 Western that gave Landon his break, and why he hated his hair. Before Bonanza made him a star, Michael Landon's first real break came in a low-budget Western that's since become a cult classic. The Legend of Tom Dooley from 1959 is often misattributed as his breakout, but his actual on-screen launch happened earlier in 1956's These Wilder Years. However, it was his lead role in I Was a Teenage Werewolf in 1957, a horror Western hybrid that leaned into drive-in thrills, that truly caught Hollywood's attention. What's often forgotten is the more minor role he landed in 1956's The Sheriff of Cochise, a syndicated Western crime series. That one-episode appearance was his first credited role in the genre that would later define his career. The Western format was booming, and Landon's brooding intensity and athletic build made him a natural fit for the frontier hero archetype. But behind the scenes, he was battling a personal vanity war with his hair. Studio stylists at the time tried to tame his thick, unruly mane with heavy pomade and awkward styling that made him feel more like a wax figure than a cowboy. Landon reportedly loathed how his hair looked on camera, especially in early TV roles. Years later, even during Bonanza, he remained heavily involved in how his hair was styled on set, often overriding the makeup department to maintain control over his look. It's a funny detail, but it stuck with him. Hair wasn't just vanity, it was part of his image. In a business built on image, even a young unknown like Landon knew bad hair could cost you a career. Teen werewolf to TV legend, Michael Landon's strange rise to fame. Long before he was Charles Ingalls or Jonathan Smith, Michael Landon howled his way into the big screen as a teenage werewolf. Literally. His breakout role in 1957's I Was a Teenage Werewolf was low budget, high camp, and totally unexpected for a guy who'd once been an aspiring Olympic javelin thrower. Yet this quirky horror flick became a box office smash, grossing over $2 million on a shoestring budget of just $125,000, a staggering hit for American International Pictures at the time. Landon played Tony Rivers, a moody high schooler turned snarling monster via hypnosis and bad science. The prosthetics were itchy, the makeup sessions grueling, and he hated the glue used to attach the fur. But audiences ate it up, and suddenly the unknown actor with piercing eyes and raw screen presence had a cult following. In a strange twist, this schlocky B-movie ended up launching a career that would later define wholesome family television. What's even weirder, Landon didn't exactly want the role at first. He was worried it would pigeonhole him, and he wasn't wrong. He spent the next few years stuck in minor genre roles. But the exposure was undeniable. It caught the attention of casting directors, including those behind Bonanza, where he landed the role of Little Joe Cartwright in 1959. The leap from teenage lycanthrope to frontier heartthrob might seem bizarre, but in 1950s Hollywood, all roads to stardom were strange. Landon just took the one with fangs and fake fur first. How Bonanza made Michael Landon a household name and a millionaire. When Bonanza premiered in 1959, few expected it to become one of the longest-running westerns in TV history. Michael Landon, cast as Little Joe Cartwright, was just 22, but his charm, energy, and romantic appeal quickly made him a fan favorite. The show's unique use of color, NBC wanted to push color TVs, and focus on a father-son dynamic set it apart, and Landon became a fixture in millions of homes each week. Behind the scenes, Landon was brilliant. He negotiated a better salary and eventually secured writing and directing credits. By the time Bonanza ended in 1973, he wasn't just an actor, he was a millionaire with creative control, rare in that era. The series ran for 14 seasons, and Landon appeared in nearly every episode, transforming him from teenage werewolf novelty into an actual TV icon with long-term staying power. Why Landon rewrote his lines on Bonanza without telling anyone? Even early in Bonanza days, Michael Landon wasn't content to deliver lines, he wanted to shape them. Known for being deeply invested in his character, he quietly began rewriting his own dialogue to make Little Joe more emotional, thoughtful, and human. At first, he didn't ask for permission. He just showed up to set with changes penciled in. It ruffled feathers, especially among producers and fellow writers, but the changes often worked. His rewrites made scenes stronger and gave Little Joe more depth. Eventually, Landon's instincts earned him respect and more creative freedom. By the mid-1960s, he was writing full episodes, officially this time. His hands-on approach wasn't ego, it was about control over storytelling. Landon once said, "If I'm going to tell it, I want to believe it." That attitude would define the rest of his television career. Behind the scenes of Bonanza, Landon versus Pernell Roberts. What really happened? While Bonanza looked like a brotherly bond on screen, tension simmered off-camera, especially between Michael Landon and co-star Pernell Roberts, who played Adam Cartwright. Roberts, a classically trained stage actor, often clashed with the show's direction and viewed the scripts as shallow. Landon, rising in influence, favored emotional storytelling and family themes, which Roberts felt diluted the show's potential. Their creative differences weren't explosive, but the vibe on set was icy at times. Landon was committed to the series' success. Roberts grew more vocal about leaving. By 1965, Roberts walked away from the show, tired of playing what he called a cartoon cowboy. Landon, meanwhile, doubled down, writing, directing, and eventually becoming the series' creative heartbeat. Though they respected each other professionally, their visions for Bonanza were never truly aligned, and that quietly shaped the show's evolution. The real reason Michael Landon created Little House on the Prairie. Michael Landon didn't just star in Little House on the Prairie, he built it from the ground up. After Bonanza ended, he wanted a show that blended moral storytelling with deeper emotional weight. When he read Laura Ingalls Wilder's books, he saw more than nostalgia. He saw a platform to explore themes such as poverty, grief, and family resilience, all while keeping them accessible to mainstream audiences. NBC initially only wanted him as the star, but Landon insisted on producing and directing. He wanted complete control to craft something he believed in. He later said the stories reminded him of his own struggles growing up, poor, insecure, and often at odds with his identity. Little House debuted in 1974 and became a massive success. More than just wholesome TV, it was Landon's passion project, a series that felt personal because it was. Melissa Gilbert says Michael Landon was like a father until this moment. Melissa Gilbert, who played Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie, often described Michael Landon as a surrogate father. He mentored her, made her feel safe on set, and shaped her early career with kindness and high expectations. She even spent holidays with his real family. But that bond shattered when she learned he was having an affair with a much younger makeup artist during the show's final seasons. Gilbert was devastated, not just by the affair, but by how it contradicted everything Landon had stood for on screen. She admitted in interviews that it felt like a personal betrayal, saying, "My image of him was completely shattered." Though they eventually reconciled before he died in 1991, the moment marked a painful turning point in their relationship. For Gilbert, it was the day her hero became human and flawed. Michael Landon's on-set rules: no smoking, no swearing, no exceptions. By the time Little House on the Prairie was in full swing, Michael Landon had a clear vision and strict rules to match. He banned smoking, swearing, and any form of on-set negativity. These weren't studio policies, they were his personal code. He believed the environment on set should reflect the show's values: family-friendly, respectful, and professional. Some crew members initially chafed at the restrictions, but Landon led by example. Despite being a longtime smoker off-camera, he never lit up on set and expected others to do the same. Swearing? Off-limits, even during stressful shoots. His approach helped keep the atmosphere calm, especially for the many child actors in the cast. Landon believed discipline created better performances, and it worked. Under his leadership, Little House became known for its tight schedule, low drama, and deep emotional authenticity. Why Landon insisted on real tears, even if it meant slapping a co-star. Michael Landon believed emotion had to be real, or it didn't belong on screen. While directing Little House on the Prairie, he pushed actors to deliver genuine tears, especially in heavy scenes. If someone couldn't cry on cue, Landon would do anything to get the performance, within limits. In one instance, he reportedly lightly slapped a guest actor off camera before a take, at their request, to elicit an emotional reaction. It wasn't cruelty, it was commitment. Landon had an almost obsessive drive for authenticity, sometimes tearing up himself just off camera to help child actors connect. His intense methods weren't always popular, but they worked. Episodes like "I'll Be Waving As You Drive Away" are still remembered for their emotional punch. For Landon, tears weren't a trick, they were truth. And truth, he felt, was the heart of great television. The day Michael Landon collapsed while directing and hid it from everyone. During the final months of Highway to Heaven, Michael Landon began showing signs that something was wrong, but he kept it quiet. One afternoon in late 1990, while directing an emotional scene, he briefly collapsed behind the camera. Crew members thought he was just exhausted from the long shoot day. Landon waved them off, laughed it off, and kept going. What no one knew yet was that pancreatic cancer had already begun to take hold. Landon hadn't been diagnosed officially, but he'd been experiencing unexplained fatigue and stomach pain. True to form, he avoided doctors and didn't want anyone worrying. That moment on set would be one of the last times he directed an episode. When his diagnosis came just months later, many recalled that quiet collapse as the first visible sign. Even in illness, Landon chose to protect the work and hide the pain. 3 marriages, 9 kids, and 1 scandal. Landon's complex family life. Michael Landon's family life was as sprawling and dramatic as any script he ever wrote. Across 3 marriages, he fathered or adopted 9 children, each part of a patchwork clan that he adored. Even his personal choices complicated those bonds. His first marriage to Dodie Levy Frazier ended quietly, but his second to Lynn No exploded into public view in the early 80s when he left her for Cindy Clarico, a much younger Little House makeup artist. The affair sparked tabloid headlines and backlash, especially since Landon had built his image around wholesome family values. Yet, despite the scandal, he married Cindy in 1983 and had 2 more children with her. He remained close with most of his kids, including adopted sons, and emphasized parenting even while juggling stardom. His life off-screen was messy, loyal, loving, and undeniably honest, just like the characters he brought to life. Why Landon's second wife threw his clothes on the lawn, and the press loved it. When Michael Landon's affair with 28-year-old makeup artist Cindy Clerico came to light in the early 1980s, his second wife, Lynn No, didn't go quietly. After nearly 19 years of marriage and 4 children together, she was blindsided and furious. In a dramatic moment straight out of a soap opera, Lynn reportedly tossed Landon's clothes out onto the front lawn of their Beverly Hills home. Tabloids had a field day. For a man known as TV's ultimate family man, thanks to Bonanza and Little House, the scandal was pure headline gold. Landon tried to keep things private, but the image of his jeans and shirts scattered across the grass became a symbol of the rupture between his public persona and his private choices. Still, Landon and Lynn kept things civil for their kids. Years later, even he admitted he didn't handle the divorce as gracefully as he should have. Michael Landon's son opens up about growing up with a TV icon. Michael Landon Jr., one of 9 children, has been candid over the years about what it was really like growing up in the shadow of a television legend. While he admired his father's work ethic and charisma, he's also spoken openly about the emotional toll fame and family drama took behind closed doors. In interviews and documentaries, he's recalled both the warmth and the weight of having a dad beloved by millions, yet often absent due to grueling production schedules. Things became especially strained during Landon's affair and divorce from Lynn No, which the children felt deeply. Landon Jr. struggled with resentment, but later found healing through faith and filmmaking. Today, he's a successful producer and director in his own right, ironically making family-centered dramas not unlike his father's. His reflections add nuance to the legacy, iconic on screen, complicated at home. Landon's obsession with youth. The plastic surgery rumors were real. In his later years, Michael Landon became increasingly concerned with aging, and the pressure to maintain his youthful image was real. By the 1980s, whispers about cosmetic procedures swirled around him, especially as he continued to play romantic leads well into his 50s. Landon denied going under the knife, but industry insiders confirmed he underwent minor procedures, including an eye lift and subtle facial work to keep his signature look intact. Friends said he was self-conscious about his thinning hair and often obsessed over lighting and angles on set. He reportedly used dyes and touch-ups religiously and personally oversaw his hair and makeup during filming. While he never crossed into extreme surgery, his desire to appear timeless was unmistakable. In an image-driven industry, Landon wasn't alone, but he tried to age on his terms, even if that meant quietly fighting time in the makeup chair. The last episode Landon ever directed, and what he knew no one else did. The final episode Michael Landon directed was Us, a 1991 pilot he also starred in and wrote. What no one knew at the time, not even much of the crew, was that Landon was battling the earliest symptoms of pancreatic cancer. He kept it quiet, determined to finish the project without any concern or pity. Though Us never became a whole series, it was deeply personal, centered on a man falsely imprisoned, seeking redemption. Looking back, it reads like a farewell letter. Landon knew something was wrong, but he pushed through anyway, writing his own final chapter behind the camera. Michael Landon's cancer diagnosis, the day that changed everything. In April 1991, Michael Landon was diagnosed with inoperable pancreatic cancer that had already spread to his liver. The news came just days after he experienced intense stomach pain and collapsed at home. At only 54, he publicly announced his diagnosis in a press conference, stunning fans and colleagues. Ever the fighter, he vowed to beat it through diet and alternative therapies, but behind the scenes, he knew the odds were slim. That day marked a tragic turning point, not just in his health, but in how he prepared his family, career, and legacy for the inevitable goodbye. Why he refused chemotherapy until the cameras stopped rolling. Michael Landon delayed chemotherapy until after publicly addressing his cancer because he didn't want to appear weak. When he announced his diagnosis on The Tonight Show and at a press conference in May 1991, he was full of energy, cracking jokes and reassuring fans. He waited to begin treatment so he could control the narrative and avoid sympathy headlines. Once the camera stopped rolling, he quietly began chemo, but the disease was aggressive. For Landon, image mattered. He wanted to face the end with dignity, not as a patient, but as the strong, smiling storyteller fans had always known. Inside Michael Landon's final interview, what he said about death. Michael Landon's final interview aired on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson in May 1991. Facing terminal cancer, he appeared upbeat, even cracking jokes about tabloid rumors. But when the conversation turned serious, Landon was clear-eyed. He said, "I'm going to fight like hell. I have too much to live for." He spoke about his children, his love life, and his refusal to give in to fear. It wasn't a goodbye, it was a defiant stand. Even then, Landon chose hope, humor, and strength. That night, millions saw a man facing death, but refusing to surrender to it. The letter he wrote to his children before passing, unseen until now. Before his death, Michael Landon wrote heartfelt letters to each of his 9 children. Personal, private messages meant to guide them after he was gone. The contents weren't made public until years later, when his son Michael Jr. revealed excerpts in interviews. In them, Landon shared advice about love, resilience, and staying true to yourself. One line reportedly read, "Don't focus on fame, focus on being a good person." These letters weren't dramatic or tearful. They were steady, fatherly, and full of warmth. Even in his final days, Landon's deepest role wasn't as actor or director, it was dad. What Michael Landon told Johnny Carson weeks before he died. Just weeks before his death, Michael Landon sat across from Johnny Carson and delivered one of late-night TV's most emotional interviews. Despite his diagnosis, he was composed and candid. He told Carson, "If you have to die, die sitting up." It wasn't just a quip, it was Landon's way of showing strength. He spoke about cherishing time with his kids, refusing self-pity, and facing death with dignity. The audience laughed and cried with him. That appearance wasn't for sympathy, it was his last gift to fans: courage, honesty, and the same fierce optimism that defined his entire career. Michael Landon's funeral, the guest who was asked not to speak. Michael Landon's funeral on July 5, 1991, was a private yet star-studded event in Malibu, filled with co-stars, friends, and family. But one surprising detail emerged later. A longtime industry acquaintance arrived intending to give a eulogy, but was politely asked not to speak. The reason? Landon had personally requested that only close family and a few chosen friends share memories. He wanted the service to remain heartfelt, not a Hollywood spectacle. Those who did speak focused on his humor, loyalty, and love for his children. Even in death, Landon protected the tone: real, emotional, and deeply personal. Where Michael Landon is buried and why fans still leave javelins there. Michael Landon is buried at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, California, a serene, private Jewish cemetery. While most fans visit quietly, a curious tradition has emerged. Miniature javelins occasionally appear near his headstone. It's a subtle nod to his early life as a record-breaking high school javelin thrower, a dream cut short by injury but never forgotten. Some fans say it's their way of honoring the journey, from athlete to actor, from Eugene to Michael Landon. The javelins aren't just props, they're symbols of how far he threw himself into life, even when fate changed the direction. The script Landon was writing before he died. A final message to viewers. Before his diagnosis, Michael Landon was developing a new series called Us, where he played a wrongly convicted man rebuilding his life. He wrote the pilot himself, pouring in themes of redemption, second chances, and quiet strength. Many now see it as a reflection of his own journey, a man confronting judgment, pain, and hope. Although Us was never made into a whole series, the pilot aired posthumously in 1991. For fans, it felt like Landon's final message. Even in the darkest chapters, there's always a path forward. It was storytelling with heart, precisely what he was known for until the end. Why Michael Landon is still one of the most Googled classic TV stars. Decades after his death, Michael Landon remains one of the most searched names in classic television, and it's not just nostalgia. His shows, Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie, and Highway to Heaven, continue to air worldwide, gaining new audiences across generations. His personal story, filled with triumphs and flaws, keeps fans curious. Whether it's his sudden rise, tragic death, or behind-the-scenes drama, Landon's life still captivates. Add to that viral interviews, heartfelt tributes, and streaming access, and it's no mystery why he's always trending. He wasn't just a star, he became a symbol of heart-driven, timeless television. The day Melissa Gilbert broke down talking about Landon 30 years later. In 2021, nearly 3 decades after Michael Landon's death, Melissa Gilbert emotionally reflected on their bond during a podcast interview. While praising him as a mentor and father figure, she broke down, recalling his sudden passing. She admitted she never fully processed the loss, saying, "I never got to say goodbye." Gilbert had idolized him growing up on Little House on the Prairie, and even as an adult, his influence remained. That moment of vulnerability reminded fans how deeply Landon impacted those around him, not just on screen, but in real, lasting, and very human ways. Michael Landon's widow finally breaks the silence, what you never knew until now. In recent interviews, Cindy Landon has revealed emotional truths she kept private for decades. She spoke about Michael's final days, his fear, and the strength he showed despite knowing he was dying. What many didn't know? He spent hours writing personal letters to each of their children and refused to let them see him in pain. Cindy also shared how deeply the public misunderstood parts of his life, including the affair that started their relationship. He wasn't perfect, she said, but he loved with everything he had. Her words added depth to the legend and humanity to the man behind it. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon